If I fart, doesn't matter. You can edit it.
Yes, exactly.
Good.
I have a special plugin for farts too. Yeah, so I was doing some background checks on you, and apparently, you know, deep tissue massage, holistic health, Microsoft Office, Thai massage, event management. These are keywords, most likely, you know.
Yeah.
But I just felt it was funny to have health in the Microsoft Office.
Yes.
And then at the bottom is coaching.
It shows probably how thin my online
Yes.
presence and updating is.
You're really trying.
Yeah. So that, I think that, I don't know if that's all LinkedIn is probably, maybe.
Yes.
And I think maybe I just opened an account when I started looking for work in London after traveling.
Yeah.
And then I just threw some stuff in and opened the account, and that was it. I think it's been dormant.
Yeah.
Or I might have updated it to say I was then a rowing coach or something.
You were what?
As a rowing coach.
Yeah, that's actually the first point. When did you leave?
When I came here, January 23.
All right.
Yeah. So right.
Because you're still.
Yeah. That's gonna switch. I don't know if I'll update that.
You've been there for 13 years and 10 months.
Yeah.
So that's impressive.
I had actually been there for 13 years because I don't know when I said I started there, but I started in 2010.
October 2010.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay. So yes. Yeah. I started then, and
So
then
you're there for 10
but
years.
then I finished in 2023 January.
All right.
So it was 13 years,
Right.
more or less. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean.
And then it's going to be, I'm about to start at Q, which is a similar school just up the river from there.
Yeah. I was gonna ask actually. You're gonna move soon, and then what's that? So it says, again, that was my first sort of. It's not a question. It's just you're head of boats, which I thought head of boats is kind of a funny thing.
What does that mean? It's
That
the only place that has that title.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
So otherwise it's director of rowing or head of rowing.
boats. This is so. These guys come up with the funniest.
It's like the child with his train station.
Yes.
But these are
yes.
boats.
This is the boat chief.
I have all these toy boats. I just push backwards and forwards.
So, how's well, you talked about it now. How's this new position? How's it different? You're not head of boats anymore.
So the head of boats was basically a head of rowing,
All right.
or director of rowing, running the rowing for the whole school. And then this is essentially the same job. It's called director of rowing at this new school. But the program is quite a new school, and a very young program. It's 7 years in, so it's just completed kind of one cycle.
All right.
Of kids through the whole thing. So they're kind of starting their second phase now, whereas the previous school was hundreds of years
All right.
old, and the program arguably about 84 years old. As a rowing program. So yeah.
Is it a different way are there commonalities between how these schools operate and how they teach, and what do you see as what these kids experience as being PE and stuff?
Yeah, so they're both co-ed, both.
All right.
So it's going to have girls and boys together, both private schools, pretty like affluent. But they'll have some bursary, or the previous school would have had bursaries in there, so more of a range and a mix.
All right.
Of kids. But they'll work together. The new school is much smaller as a rowing program, and smaller school. So it'll feel more of a tight community, and probably more of an underdog within the rowing scene, just starting out. whereas the previous one was much bigger, or we'd grown it quite big, and it had that more of an established culture to it. But the kids will be there'll be so many similarities. The kids will be doing it as like teamwork, as kind of almost like they have their school, and then they have another part of their school, which is their rowing club.
Yeah.
So they kind of have these two worlds, which also intermingle. And the parents they're pretty involved because they're day schools, both of them.
Yeah.
West London is quite a bubble as well. So the parents become part of the boat club community. They're supporting events. They're always at events, so they get a bit of a social life out of that, as well as seeing and enjoying their children what they're doing. So it becomes a much bigger community.
And are these children like sort of doing other stuff, other sports, or is it just he's a rowing kid, or what? Like,
it's a mix.
Or rowing families, or like you have here. Probably.
Yeah, you'll have a range of that. So some will be like athletes and have been doing other sports, or maybe do multiple sports and find that they're competitive rowers because they're an athlete straight up. And they may see that rowing could give them a stepping stone to maybe to a GB vest, like to international representation, in a way that may be more realistic or achievable than, say, if they were going to do it for that in rugby or football. Just being that more of a niche sport. But then you could have kids who have maybe not had those ball skills typically, or might have not developed on a boys' side. They may have developed later, and they may have been left out of other sports or not found a groove in other sports. And sometimes rowing to them can be like, oh, here's a new thing, I'll try it. And typically rowing coaches will be used to developing everyone from scratch. So they'll put in that time, and this is a way. Also, you're on the river, you're doing something that's taking you out of what your normal zone has been. And sometimes that face time with a coach and with other people in that environment builds this confidence in these kids who haven't had any confidence in sport. They've almost ready to drop out of all sport and written it off, and then they'll do this and they'll be like, wow, I found something.
Sorry, I don't know anything about rowing. Do they row in like pairs, or is just one guy per sort of?
So yeah, again, it's a mix. So they'll typically, in the school programs like this, you'd start them in bigger boats called octos. So you might have 8 kids and rowing with 2 oars each.
So it's sort of a team thing.
So it's much more of a team thing, and that's mainly safety because of the river and the changing conditions and having that many kids.
And so you have more force kind of to get out of stuff, or what?
Yeah, you can. They're much more stable, the boats. It can stuff can still go wrong, and then you've got 8 kids in the water as opposed to 1. But typically, if you read the conditions and you're doing it, it's way safer and it's much more manageable.
And are you out there with them?
Yeah, and then a coach will go out in a launch.
And how? All right.
Yeah, so you got a motorboat with them, with a safety boat going around. Yeah.
Because then I could see how it could be
with a lasso.
Yeah. I know when you throw your flip flop, and then your flip flop gets stuck in a tree too, and then you're like, oh no,
Yeah.
Interesting. And these kids, why have they, besides sort of social reasons or just happenstance, what makes these kids good or bad at rowing? Like physically, sort of, anatomically.
Yeah, so if you were just starting 2 kids, hadn't done anything before rowing wise, then you'd say, okay, it would favor maybe the taller kid, or
damn it again,
or lung power is ultimately when you're getting really competitive. So just having enough efficiency with oxygen consumption and output, that having lung power to be able to do that. Like rowers with big lungs can tolerate lactic, all of that.
And that's mostly genetic, let's say.
Yes, but again, all these things you can still build and work at. So you might have someone, and this would be the same for many sports, who comes in and just is naturally quite good at some of these things.
Because I know coaches, like, usually they get excited about, underdogs or people who look like they were unable to do anything and suddenly they reveal themselves, or they apparently overcome their limitations or whatever. But I know that statistically also that's sort of, we just want to believe that, sort of, we just attach ourselves to that idea. But I would like to know how often does that happen?
You can have a range of kids and sizes and physiques that come in.
All right.
So I would always say that talent, if you're going to row, if you're going to put yourself to any sport, but if you're going to apply yourself to rowing and you're going to do it for a few years or for the long run, talent's only going to get you so far, and then someone's going to overtake you with that. So like mental drive and self-motivation is going to be the biggest key of everything. So that will override eventually everything else, because it's a challenging sport. So it's physically demanding, it's mentally demanding because you've got to do a lot of volume work, a lot of repetitive work. If you're doing it on your own in a single and you're going to compete in that, the mental demand's huge. But if you're going to do it in a crew boat, you've got to work with other people, and that, depending on your approach and those around you, could be equally or more demanding. So some people go in a single because they can't handle that. Other people go in a crew because they can't handle the pressure on themselves in a single. So it's a mental game, whichever way you look at it. Physically is hugely demanding, and then it may seem a simple repetitive sport, but there's a lot of technicality to it. So you're refining and fine-tuning something similar, I guess, in ways to like a swimmer will have to do endless volume for the physical side, but then you're really refining a stroke in water, which is still a changing dynamic. So, and it's all on the stopwatch at the end of the day. So the pressure can be, I'd say the drive is the most important thing for long-term achievement in the sport.
How are these people spending their days? Like, I would like to understand how much time they're spending in the boats versus at the gym, and what percentage of time or what proportion of time at the gym is spent on a rower versus other stuff, versus strength or whatever.
So that could really be dictated by what you have as a club or environment to work with.
I don't even know who we're working here. Like, it must change a lot from 12 to 18, right?
Yeah. So typically we were starting my last school at, you wouldn't start before 13 rowing. It would be 13 to 18-year-olds we were developing. Maybe some 12-year-olds just turning to 13 at the end of that summer.
I nailed it, huh?
And then, what's that?
I nailed it.
Yeah. And then you'd have, in that first year, they'd probably be doing anything from 3 to 5 sessions a week. Some might just do a session a week and they're just tasting the sport and getting into it. But you wouldn't do more than around 5 sessions in a week, tops. And you'd be trying to keep them in other sports and doing other things. But some would just do rowing as well. And then that might then, depending on how many sessions they're doing, they could be doing up to, say, 3 water sessions out of 5, and then maybe 1 ergo on a rower, and 1 kind of basic conditioning or strength and conditioning, which might be just learning some of those movements. It might be some circuit training. But again, that may all change depending on conditions throughout the winter. It might be unrowable. They're going to do a lot more land and flip that between ergo. And you might then do, if you're doing a lot more ergos, you're not going to just do constant, like, grueling ergo sessions. You're going to do a lot of technical. Most of that first year is going to be technical work on the ergo, whilst also
so more intense, or what?
Trying to balance.
So not long duration, or what do you mean by?
So technical would be like lots of drills. So exercises and video feedback and lots of coaching, maybe pausing at different parts of the stroke, breaking the stroke down, and starting to just all looking at working on positioning really, and sequencing as the basic parts of the rowing stroke to build up, and timing together all, so you're sort of working together as a team still. As they get better at that, you can put them on sliders, so the ergo machines are then linked
Yeah.
and they're moving together, and that will give them another
I've seen
kind
that
of,
once a long time ago. So yeah.
yeah.
If you could describe it better,
So,
especially for yeah.
yeah. So each ergometer
Yeah.
is going to have two legs, the front and one at the front, and one at
Alright.
the back where it's sitting. You can have some sliders that will basically be metal strips with a frame that have wheels underneath and a bungee, so they can then they're bungee together. So as you're taking the stroke, the machine is then moving under you. So you're staying on a static ergo on land.
Alright.
You're moving up and down, your feet staying in the same place, and your seat is on rollers moving up and down that. That still stays the same on the machine, but with these sliders, the sliders are moving the machine for you, and effectively your seat can be staying in the same place.
Right.
So the feet are coming to and away from you.
Yeah. Right. Let's hope people who are
And
listening.
if you're that's if you're sitting on your own.
Yeah,
If
and
you're
how do you
linking
do
them up,
this?
you can link them up one in front of the other, but you can also link them up sideways, so they would all be in a row, and people rowing next to each other on them.
Okay.
And there's different machines that have been developed to do that more effectively and efficiently.
Amazing.
And like you have on the Concept 2 monitor that gives
Yeah.
you the feedback of what you're doing, and your splits,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
power output and speed and
And is
stroke.
it good for these people? Is it always good for the athlete to be, aware of what's happening, aware of the output, aware of these screens, or
Often, yes. Sometimes there's times that coaches may decide to cover all that up, or just put it away, or have them down, so that the athlete's just not worried and focused on these figures. Maybe they're working technically, or maybe sometimes it can become you against the machine.
Yeah.
And that can be a good time to take the pressure away. You just take away the output screen, and you might be working just off heart rate, or just thinking mentally what you're doing.
Right.
So there's lots of different ways, and often you can also, a bit like you can take it to an extreme and have goggles giving you video feedback, so you're watching your stroke yourself, but you could just have a video camera, play it on a screen for the group, so they can be rowing and see what they are looking like from side on, whilst keeping their head
sort
straight.
of an
and just
overview of like what's
of what
happening.
they're doing and what the team's doing.
Yeah.
Equally, they could be following.
Kind of like a rear view mirror.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah,
It's like-
exactly. So there's loads, and in lockdown we were getting kids who had rowers. We gave out some equipment home, and when they're stuck in their room, we said, look, just
And
put
is it
your
like
phone on.
like these Concept 2s or
Yeah,
whatever you
exactly,
have?
like these Concept 2s, and stick your phone, set it up, have your laptop in front of you while you're rowing, and you can have your live feedback of what you're doing
All right.
visually. So you can coach yourself that way
Uh-huh.
in most things.
Interesting. So I also found it says here that you're an actor. You did 2 films.
I don't think.
Different. All right. I mean,
Yes,
it
of
did
course,
say
yes.
that. You have an IMDb page, just so you know. I'll show it to you later. I'll send it to you. All right. I thought we had more in common. So how did you end up, besides your acting career, how did you end up working as an S&C coach?
So that was really through the rowing coaching as an essential to start strength and conditioning with the kids. But it's an area I've always kind of valued and had an interest in myself. And I think from the work I did training as a massage, and I did like self-practice with yoga, that all fed into it in a similar way.
Right.
So my first experience strength and conditioning was through rowing as a rower myself, as a junior. So, but also I until 13 I was a musician, so I did very little sport, and that was my parents were musicians, and that kind of paid my way as schooling. So my brother and I got scholarships, and that paid the fees.
This is interesting.
So but as I found I was really unfit, and that frustrated me. And I felt I wasn't, if it was in a school team, like I couldn't run cross country, I couldn't do this. I felt I couldn't do these things, which started to chip away at me a bit. And I wasn't small, like I was tall, felt taller than the average probably, but I kind of felt, and there were a bit of chippy comments, so it obviously got under my skin, and I started to want to turn that around myself and get fit. And we obviously didn't have internet back when I'm talking about, but I remember going off. I went to boarding school, and at 13 I was like, right, I'm gonna find a program. I'm gonna get a
You
program.
start going like this in the mirror. And
So
right.
yeah, but it was an
That's sort
old
of the
school
age
program. You'll
where
probably
kids-
see the stuff now as apps galore of chair
course, yeah.
workouts and all the rest of it. It was essentially something probably
I
similar
saw
to that.
the
I
other
did.
day some an app called Uber Steroids or something. So I think you can.
Yeah, so this was,
It's a different world.
yeah, I ended up doing, I think it was through some magazine I'd seen, or cut out or whatever, advert, and I'd basically written off this thing and got a program. It was just like a big file, like paper wad of program you could do just in your room, whatever, using a bed, using chairs, using a desk, whatever it was, full body workout you could do. So I just started doing that.
All right, just let's rewind just a little bit because it's funny because while I have also some sort of a life that kind of crosses with different things before this. We all have lives before we did fitness, but Manel actually is a musician, and that was the first sort of, I don't know what order this is going to be, but you'll probably be the second episode. And Manel also has a story of like being a musician since he was a kid and starting up, and kind of coming from there. So what were your parents playing, and what were you playing?
So my
And your brother apparently.
brother as well. Brother and I, we both played the same stuff, played the same instruments. But our parents, mum was harp. She played the harp and the piano, and she met my father in an orchestra. She was a harpist. He was a double bass player,
All right.
and he was
Wow.
also a pianist. So his father was a concert pianist, and he trained as a concert pianist, but then felt it would be an isolated life, like constantly playing the same pieces for people. And he had spoken. He also played the cello as his.
Yeah.
That was the other thing he was going to do as an orchestra. But he spoke to a colleague who played the double bass, and he was like, "There's a shortage of double bass players. I think I can train you up in 6 months to be a professional double bass player, and you can just use your same fingering you use on the
Yeah,
cello.
the
and
idea of
transpose
how
it."
scales, where the notes are, is I suppose.
Yeah.
it's-
So that's what he did. He basically trained him up using the same finger work as he had already on the cello, across transposed it to double bass, and then that was what he did. So he was a double bass player in several orchestras. He was a professor at the Royal Academy in London in the end,
At the what?
at the Royal Academy of
Oh,
Music
shit.
in London. So
shit.
that was he was the principal bass player for the London Symphony Orchestra. So that was his thing, and then we were brought up basically piano, cello, and
right.
singing.
Of course, I was waiting for that.
Yeah,
And so, but you just the boys sang, but not your parents, or what?
yeah, we sang. They didn't sing. I don't remember them singing. Well, yeah,
Well, maybe they knew a bit, kind of
New Year's.
technical. All right. So a strings house.
Yeah, exactly. Stringed instruments.
All right, and well, this difficult segue, but like, and then you started training these magazine workouts, and then eventually you kind of left. You had a scholarship with that was related to music.
Yeah, so that was where it kind of came to a head. Like I was, yeah, I was playing the way. I had a free place as a music scholar, but I started to. There was an opportunity to row, and I'd been kind of training to get myself fit, and that was a. I obviously wanted an outlet, a physical outlet, so that's what I'd been doing for a year. And by the end of this first year at school, there was a chance in the summer term to row, and you could. It was really easy there. You could just. They had all these boats, single sculls. You could just sign in this big book, take out a boat, and go for 4 hours or whatever, and row up the river. And you could go to the pub if you wanted. There was no. It was very free. There was none of this health and safety and being buttoned down. So I used to do that every other day. I would go out rowing. Like
Feels
that.
very free too, like to go and just get to
Really
know
good.
by yourself what's this.
Yeah,
It's
it
your own
was all
experience,
just
it's your-
experimenting, teaching yourself. So that was, and that over a term, that was really good. We developed, and then, but it was all self-development. You weren't coached at that point. And then there was this big like first summer scholars race for the whole year group that you could do, but it was very relaxed and like open to everyone. So did that and ended up winning and felt, wow, that was like, brilliant, love it, love this, and thought, oh, that's what I'll do. And so then I went into kind of part of a squad training the following year, and that developed further. And by the end of that year, it was like, okay, you're not really doing. It came to a discussion because I wasn't really doing the music. I wasn't pulling my way in the music, but the argument put for me was I was pulling my way by then rowing, and I held the free place, but it transferred to rowing. So
All right.
it was really good for me, because it opened doors for me and changed how my life would have been at school, and since. And yeah, I was really supportive.
And then you
of the
went to
avenue of Edinburgh.
Brr. You went to Edinburgh. I was just in '97. I have some extra stuff here about you, but that's sort of trainees of yours that won stuff. And then you went to Edinburgh, and so far, now you're here, going back to this other position. What made you come here? How did you end up here in this country?
Surf was a big pull here, and throughout. I probably should have said. So I was probably rowing to be fit to surf. So that kind of kept me.
When did that?
Throughout school, that kept me as a
You were
driver
rowing to be fit for surfing.
to then be able to surf in the holidays. Yeah, I'd never lived by the coast, so it's always been a thing. But that was a driver for me. Was always.
And where would you go? Where would you go surfing?
Cornwall, Ireland, here in Portugal we came once,
All right.
and we tried
I
France.
knew
a
Cornwall
bit.
was going to be the first
Yeah.
thing that came out of your mouth.
Cornwall and Ireland were the go-tos, yeah. And then by the end of school, it was Indonesia and places. So it was we had we traveled a lot. You got to see a lot.
With your parents, just the four of you.
No, it was me and my parents were split. So it was me and my
Right.
brother and mum normally, maybe grandma. She'd come along with the dog, and
What
then
kind of dog?
Labrador.
All right.
Oh, he's black lab. And then my brother and I, we'd travel a lot after that. Once I was 16, he was 18, we'd go ourselves and travel. So that felt liberating to be doing that. and great to have a brother to do it with.
And how good is rowing for surfing then?
It's good because it's good
I mean, the
fitness.
paddling, right?
It's good. It's good fitness. Definitely, it helps in terms of fitness, and yeah, it gives you that tenacity when stuff's not fun. Like when you're struggling surfing and you're just like can't get out, or you're getting beaten up the whole time. Then it's like, okay, well, this is still more fun than rowing. so, so it's like I think rowing has provided a lot of things for me. Like it does give you that. There's real reward, but you've really got to work for the reward. And I think that transfers to lots of things that are more accessible than that. But I'd say that surfing can be frustrating for people. I've seen plenty of people
Yeah, of course.
struggle to pursue it, but like the idea of it.
A steep curve, huh?
Yeah,
First
So,
year.
and I think if you can't be by the sea, then you're constantly facing that little battle because you might see yourself progress in this short window, a week or 2 weeks, and then
you detrain
6 months you've lost the whole lot and starting again. So there's been plenty of that to happen, but it makes you also be creative in between, and you start. I think this is what I've done and what's changed. You talked about strength and conditioning. A lot of how I think about it has been led by these windows of I have to train somehow to get in shape for what I want to do when I get a chance to do it. How can I best do that? And that's kind of what I'm constantly thinking about and doing. And I find it really, much as I've been like a lot of my life going, God, it sucks. You know, this is a problem. I hate it. How do I change it? I still want to be by the sea. And like the thought of leaving here is a little bit upsetting for me. But there's another side to it for me now that I quite like the challenge of having this barrier of not being by the sea. And I kind of feel like I've done that enough times now that I've got enough under my belt to be able to go, actually, with a bit of confidence, I feel I can even be maybe in better shape when I come back by the sea. I'll still won't have the water feel, but I sense there's ways I'll have learned, and what I've learned just being here for a year and a bit, being able to get into the water, I feel I'll be able to take that away with me even if I'm not by the water. So
at least retain those teachings, huh?
Yeah. So it's been really motivating and interesting for me to work on. That's probably what I'd say I spend most of my time thinking about and working on here, other than like family stuff.
Yeah, that's actually something I would like to explore, which is that relationship right there, which is how your own motivations come to make you who you are as a coach. Sort of what's the will here? What's the motivation? Is it to better people? Is it to optimize this? Is it? I feel like there was a reason. Maybe there was a reason. There's like this rowing for surfing, and then trying to, how do I get better out of the water? How do I get better at being in the water, being out of the water? And that seems kind of like you're saying. It's the sort of one of the motivations. How does that influence how you work with people, as a coach? Like, how does your personal practice nowadays influence your professional practice, and vice versa? What is on your mind, sort of?
Yeah, good question. I'd like to think that going into this next job, I'll be able to listen to the athlete more and be able to support whatever that individual's wanting better. It's not to say I didn't haven't necessarily listened in the past, but there's running a program and with a team of coaches you can end up narrowing down to, is this going to fit the squads and the program and the drive and where we're wanting to get to? And if you stop to ask yourself, okay, hang on a second, if this kid was coming to me as a personal trainer, as a one-to-one, would I be giving him the same time and advice and working on the same things as I am in my coaching role now with 30 other guys running around? And it's quite hard to do that anyway, but I think there's ways that we can, and being able to give them the time when you have it to do that, or if you don't have the time, at least do your best not to influence them in another way that might either take them away or put them off what they were otherwise thinking. So you're trying to keep them motivated toward their goals, no matter whether they align with yours or the club's or whatever else it is, and find a way that is going to enhance both, because there usually is.
Yeah. How does it work with these? Again, thinking about youth, not necessarily adults. How does are these motivation sort of pathways different from adults? Because I imagine at first some kids, I mean, if you have no life experience, you can go, I want to do that, and just sort of put your head down, and you're this kid that for some reason was in his bedroom for 18 hours a day practicing the violin, right? And no one knows why, not even the kid maybe knows why, right? And then you have probably kids who go see something on TV and go, I want to do that. And then you probably have kids who are just thrown there, right? And they don't even know what rowing is. So how does motivation work for those who need it? You know what I mean? Like, because I don't think you can influence them. They're so sort of maybe goal-oriented that, they just sort of go. But how is it different from adults?
Yeah, I think adults is probably harder, a lot harder, because they probably have enough experience to think they know what to do or what it is, and they might be in their habits that are much harder. They've been ingrained for far longer, harder to change, whether that's the mental way of thinking and a pattern of thoughts, or physical pattern of things. So you've got to kind of work with them to try and break those down, and they've got to buy into that whole process. So it might take longer and be more difficult. Depends again entirely on their self-motivation. But you might have an adult who might say they want this and be saying that an awful lot, but so far their approach hasn't achieved that. And unless you can find a key to unlock that, a change in that, without a change they're going to not get anything different from the results. So but for kids, you got a range. You might, like you say, you might have the most goal-oriented, self-motivated, but then maybe what you're working on with that kid is like injury prevention, or not doing too much too soon, or finding a way of looking at processes, rather than outcomes, or whatever it is. And then for the next kid who's just been whacked there because the parents are doing their thing and this is babysitting, he's probably already coming in with or she with like, why am I here? I don't want to be here, and not totally disinterested, already thinking negatively about this whole experience, even though they don't know what it is. So you've got to find a way in there as well, which, whether it's games or it's relating to them on their level, doing something that's maybe not what they haven't thought about what it's going to be anyway, but it's still different to what they might anticipate. Just so they come back again, or
Sort
they
of
don't go, or they relax, or whatever.
surprise them.
Exactly. So there's lots of different things and it's going to be individual.
And
But
how-
then you got to, the challenge I think is linking all that within a group. If you've got 20 or 30 or however many that's doing different, coming at it from different ways, not losing the motivation of the top
Yeah.
end and missing out the bottom end or whatever.
All right. Yeah. I mean, what is this? So it could be more individual, or more of a group thing, a collective thing. Do you start sort of? Do you decide early on who's gonna do what, or do they decide themselves, or sort of is that something that you go like, this kid is probably just want to work with that other kid or by himself, like this guy is not gonna be on a, or do they all go on sort of these sort of 8 people?
So it depends how they've come into it. If what I was saying about the kid who's maybe just be plonked there, it might be a summer camp. So this might be holiday time for them, but their parents are still working, and it's like, what do we do with the kid? And whack
Yeah.
them into this camp. And some kids will go to that great, and others will be, but at least these are all kids from the school, so they're not just complete randoms that you don't have background on. So that's helpful because then you can prior, so they're kids
already a
from the
community or
school.
something.
Yeah, it's a community, but also you can vet them a bit. You can talk to the head of year, or you can get some
Yeah.
background, their tutor, what how's this kid, and a lot of that's important because really it's about their relationships with each other and what they're doing. And if you know that, you can also get onto their level better. And so if someone is sort of feeling not confident or vulnerable or else, but they don't know anyone else in that group but maybe this one other person, then you can start to do pairs work, and
It's a background check.
yeah, you're just doing something that's going to give them a little confidence boost, or but there's ways you can work things to have a better idea before you just see this group in the morning. What am I doing with them?
I wanted to ask actually, because you talked about these different schools back then and now this new school. Is the same sort of positioned in the same sort of way that it was back then? Is this the same? I don't know how familiar you are with them nowadays, but is this the same sort of institution, or has it changed in terms of education, sort of pedagogy? Yeah.
So from when it was founded, like over the years, you mean?
From when you were there, or yes, because
Yeah.
it's more. Is it still sort of a more traditional?
It's quite
approach?
they set themselves as a sort of forward-thinking school. So they were all boys school, and then developed, I think, around early 2000s, became co-ed, and then that started to filter through. By the time I started there, it had filtered through all the years, but hadn't really filtered through in all the years into the boat club.
Right.
So that was part of what we did and why it expanded and developed so much. And there a lot of the kids there, there's a sort of history and culture of music, like children of musicians and actors, and they're going there. So and
The weakest of all.
entrepreneurs. It's quite a kind of free, like liberal, forward-thinking school,
All right.
but also very academic.
Yeah.
So they do a lot. There's quite a lot of demand on the kids. They do a lot of different things, but they can choose a lot of different things as well.
So now I know you're sort of familiar with education here in Portugal.
Ish.
You're in you were in contact with a few schools here. Um, you're definitely familiar with the situation there. What would you like to see change in these two places in education, sort of, but we can be more specific in these programs or PE or whatever, there and here, and how is it different or similar?
I think there's some great things in both sides that I've seen. So I mean, here there's just so much more lifestyle, outdoors, all of that is available, but it is all outside the school from what I've seen, or more of it. And from what I've seen in the international schools and heard amongst parents as well, and what I've seen and discussed with some of the staff and coaches, is that there's a desire, there's a kind of, there's a want from the parents to have more of a community within the school and more of a sports program and squads and development within school, rather than it all being outside school. And the sports programs of the schools, they seem to be developing more facilities, and Park is building more facilities, got loads of facilities. They're also like opening up boarding sectors of the school on campus. So they look to be trying to build that kind of model and cater for that, and start developing, keeping the athletes in the schools. They've got a lot of kids who might be amazing athletes going out to clubs outside of the school, and trying to kind of encourage a bit of that inside as well, to develop within, and having more kind of cross school competitions, inter-school competitions going on. So I definitely have seen more of that. But if you would compare that in a snapshot with the rowing scene or rugby scene in the UK of schools, every school has this huge program of competitions and schedule, and it feels, certainly from Portuguese families and who have been in the UK and then come back here, they've been here, there, and back again. That's certainly what their impression and feedback's been. It's just like, it's so organised there in comparison to here. Everything is outside of the school. Kind of see both sides in a way. Like my kids, like having come here for a year, and they're the biggest community they found that was from the get-go. I just Googled hockey around Lisbon and Portugal, and Lisbon Casuals Hockey Club came up, gave him a call. Really nice guy, João Miguel, answered, said, yeah, come down on Wednesday, we'll have a look. And we were only in the country for a few days having a visit. And, there was like, yeah, just play, get the kids to play straight up. And it was so welcoming. And then when we moved here, it was like, just signed up straight away, really cheap for the year. It's like €100 or something. And then the whole program's there. The coaches are all, I think, volunteering and incredibly nice and supportive, and it's a whole community basically, of like a kind of welcoming family to get you in. So, and it's a nice spread. You've got the majority local Portuguese kids. You've got some Brazilians who came, nice family. You got others from all over the world at international schools there. So there's a bit of a mix, like nice mix there.
Yeah.
And but that for our kids definitely gave them a kind of like another world to the school.
Yeah.
They had school, because for every kid, teenager, it's going to be huge amount of change. And then there's that teething and pecking order. Where do I fit in? Who are my friends? Who are not?
Yeah.
And it's nice to have something outside. So and what was amazing here, if you got the coast, you can join a surf club, then you can join a hockey club, you can be at school, you can do PE, you can do basketball, you can play handball, you can kick a tennis ball around in the playground. but then you can do all these other things outside. So you're not reliant on one thing, and you're spreading your net and you're meeting other people.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I think that's great. And I think where the programs in the UK maybe could benefit from a bit of that is, while you've got really streamlined competitive programs that have strength and conditioning, they have this technical coaching, they have huge depth of squads driving competition and all of this, and it's great for the parents, and they can get their picnics out, and everything becomes a little bit competitive. At the same time,
Living
kids
through
can,
the kids and stuff.
kids can drop through all of that, because if they haven't had if they don't feel, they might not have grown tall enough yet, or be fast enough yet, or have the dexterity for this, and then they might just sit on the sideline and then fallen out of that sport or this sport or whatever else. And then if that's their whole world and that's a school, and there's then a very weak club program, or it's pissing with rain, or it's dark, whatever else, like, there's not that many other options. So if a kid's not having a good time at school, it could well be they're just not having a good time at all. Whereas here, you could not have a good time at school maybe, but you could be out on the beach surfing straight afterwards. So it makes a difference.
Yeah, it's nice for them to have several sources of getting to know themselves and self-esteem and stuff, because you suck at this, but then you go surfing and suddenly you're the best, and you're like, oh, I don't suck.
Yeah, and a question I'd have, having seen both sides, and probably I might put to the next parent who says it at dinner, it's like, why don't we have more of this inside the school and all that? And it's like, well, if there isn't that, but we're all here for, why have you come to Portugal? Because of the lifestyle and all this stuff. It's like, so why do we need to force it into a school? It's there already.
Yeah.
If it's already there, and it seems so hard to herd all these cats into school again, maybe it's because they're having a great time already, and they're doing all this other stuff that's actually, you can be a little more free and liberal. You don't have to conform and fit into this rigid schedule of training.
Yeah.
You can be like, I'm going to do a bit of hockey now, I'm going to do some tennis, then I'm going to paddle, then I'm going to do some canoeing, or I'm surfing this weekend.
How is that scene there? Like this thing, because I remember there was this, even before you start something, I know that happens all over the world, there was this huge thing like, you want to do your first class? You can't. This is at least a year commitment, or two. You're not going to be able to. You can't quit, right? And you're like, I haven't even. I'm not even in the building, And what's this? And then this, I understand that kids should sort of follow through with their, commit to things and not give up. That's definitely important. But this sort of, I don't know, this. What is wrong about the kid from whatever, 10, 11 to when he's out of uni or whatever, having some experience in 7 sports? What's so wrong about that, Because I understand that if you're going to be competitive, and if maybe these parents want the kids to stay in rowing, right? Maybe that's sort of a thing, but it's, unless you're buying a cello and then a double bass and then a piano, right? I understand that's expensive, but otherwise, I think there should be a different attitude about what is these kids trying several different things, because I think it's good that they have this opportunity to, while they're not working, to try a lot of sports,
Yeah, I think it is good to encourage, definitely. I feel if there was if the question's what should we be doing as coaches or adults with influence, whatever, I think it's good to encourage them to keep up as many things as they can within reason. And when I say that, it's not like, oh, have you ticked this box, that box, that box. It's more like, okay, if you're already doing football or rugby or whatever it is, and you're rowing, rather than us gradually looking always to direct them toward without saying directly,
Mhm.
"Oh, can we just do more of this one only?" Is let's allow that to be a genuine like, and I think that's also working with the coaches. It's coach to coach, and if kids on studio, if they can see coaches talking and being buddies and
Yeah.
really working together and collaborating, then they'll feel there's that's a good thing to be doing, and that there's benefit from doing
Yeah.
it, and that it's possible, and you don't have to have that chat with them because they'll see it all anyway, and it also makes it far easier for them, and they don't want to have that conflict and feeling torn
Yeah.
anyway. And from experience, seeing conversations where coaches, and I've done this probably in the past, maybe indirectly, I don't know, but where we have tried to press a direction for a kid, usually it'll backfire and the kid will choose the other thing anyway. Whereas if you're feeling pressured within a PE department or a coaching or within a school, oh, there's this kid and everyone, I can see they're trying to poach it for this or that. If you let the girl or boy just have total space and you're just like, whatever, you do as you, whatever. But these other coaches they normally come back. Yeah, they choose the one that's, they don't like to be told what to do. And so, and either way, it doesn't matter because they've got to enjoy it and they've got to be buying into it and being motivated. So how you are with them and come across with them and how transparent that is, I think is probably going to always win.
Yeah, because they are not very smart, but they aren't stupid either.
Pretty smart.
Yeah, you think?
Most of these kids are smarter than me.
Yeah, found some around too. How did you end up at the gym? How did you end up here? Yeah.
That's one of the things there's my partner who is pressing hardest for Lisbon, despite it was like, it's a big move and there was a lot of decisions sort of quitting the job and leaving from London and doing different things. But for me, the coast was like, okay, if I can be, but looking at where we were going to be, I was a little bit like, are we going to be confined? Am I going to feel claustrophobic and stuck in a flat in Lisbon? And she was looking at the Juda area, and then I found a place just 2 minutes from the gym here that looked different to any other place I'd seen. It had space and it was a bit quirky and different. So I was like, oh, I think I could actually live there. That's just got a little bit of outdoor space. It's a little more rustic feel, quieter, up on the hill. But I looked what was around and I Googled the nearest gym because I thought, I don't know, everything's changing. I'm not going to have, wherever I've been working for the last decade, there's been a gym, and that's my outlet and that's my regular structure thing. I don't know what it's going to look like in Lisbon. I don't know if I'm going to be surfing. I don't know if I'm just going to be doing shopping, cooking, driving, chauffeuring people around, then trying to find work. I don't know what. So anyway, and this was the nearest gym. I was like, I had to click it and re-click it and double check it was the right area. And I was like, this is unbelievable. I just thought if I had a blank sheet of paper and wrote up what I want a gym to be like, it would be this. So I was like, well, that's it. Let's sign the contract on this house and get going.
So it was the gym.
So it was the gym, the gym that I looked up the gym and the area and thought that was it. So and then I did a drop-in session here. I think it was Francescu. Was there another?
Oh, I don't. Back then,
another
I
guy
don't know. There's
who
a
was
few
here
people.
anyway. Yeah, he trains sometimes, very occasionally, I think. Maybe it's a different.
I'm Francesco.
Franciscu then.
Yes.
Franciscu.
Yes.
Maybe it's another Franciscu.
Well, maybe, but I never heard that.
Then,
I think I'm the only one, really.
Then
Let's hope there isn't.
Francescu.
All right, some kind of more basic things. what's some of your favorite exercises or techniques? So we get to know you in that sense.
in the gym.
Yes.
Uh, I like a lot of I like doing a lot of unilateral stuff
Mhm.
and cross loading off.
Why?
I work a lot on, I guess, mobility.
Mhm.
Uh, and I guess, yeah, I relate this to surfing, but also, I guess, to more traditional rowing development, strength and conditioning that I've done or been around, and some basic Olympic lifting. But I definitely, yeah, I look more at kind of functional strength
Mhm.
and mobility, or what I perceive as that,
Yeah.
and and when I got here, like, so certainly in the last year and a half, I felt like I've been just trying to rebuild, and I had really bad kind of backache and injuries and things that was stopping me from training or stopping me from doing basic stuff, just ordinary living. Like bending down and picking stuff up or from a cupboard or whatever. It was like really, and I think that was stress related as well as
A year, you say?
active.
A year.
Uh, yeah, but I mean, it had been training kind of got bad before that for a
Mhm.
year, where I'd sort of started to get more and more like stiff and gradually hurting, and finally realizing I'm doing less and less training because it's hurting. I'm hurting on a daily basis, not from the training though, more from maybe being less mobile. It's just lifestyle
Mhm.
and stress, I think, related. But then having come here and had to be quite a stressful move and setting things up this end, then it was like, okay, I've got to really, I want to, I'm now I'm going to start focusing on myself and turning this part around. And I feel if I look back now to how I feel day to day, and like I'll still assess even when I get out of bed or move around, does that hurt or does that not hurt? And the difference is just unbelievable. But I can tell as well.
We're high fiving. Listen.
I can tell that uh, if I don't, if I fall into an old habit or I miss a stretch or whatever, I can tell, I can feel it, and I can feel the difference. So I
Mm.
know how it could come back, but I know what works, and I'm still putting things in, like
Yeah.
just maybe 5 minutes at the end of a session to do, like focus on one kind of hip stretch or
Mhm.
glute, hamstring, something that then I can tell having done that the next morning, feeling great again. So it really makes a difference.
Yeah. When you don't show up, you
To,
get worse, basically, huh?
yeah, when I don't show up, or if I just hit, I think what happened a lot was in the business of work and stuff going on, I would not, in short, I would not have enough time to do everything. So I'd hit a session, I'd maximize the session rather than maybe enough warm up, like a kind of activation or
Mm.
mobility within the first half of the session anyway, probably within the session overall, zero at the end, and then within 5 minutes be back at an office desk, sat immobile for
Yeah.
2 hours,
That's.
and
I
then
think
be
that's the
like, why am
problem.
I stiff? Like,
Yeah.
or have got up, not warmed up, run somewhere,
Yeah.
and then come back and then sat.
Yes.
And normally it's like when you're in work and trying to train, that's normally what happens.
Yeah.
You get up from a desk, you have just this amount of time to train, and then you got to sit back at the desk
Yeah.
again. So that's something I'm going to have to figure out how. I've had the luxury of
I gotta start.
not of being
Yeah. Not.
this last
Yeah.
year. Okay, I'll train like an athlete. Well,
Yeah. I gotta make a hashtag or something. I don't know, but I'm really like to the point of you find all these strategies, and of course when you're working with people, especially remote, because here people show up, I train them, they leave, right? But especially online, which I'm now trying to come back to, you find all these strategies, and because maybe I've been away, I've been a bit more less detailed about my like in my advice to people. So I just go, just get up, stand up. Like there's
Yeah.
not even like we can go through things that you can do or find something like these. You know, this we can go through the go to the bath, go get a drink, talk to someone, just but stand up. I mean, there's still a few things we can rescue from the older back guys, back gurus and stuff, and you know, being on your feet, walking, moving, is not new, is not a new not new advice, and it still works. You know,
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's the big. Like, this is the longest I've sat for a while.
yeah,
Like,
man.
you're
I was about to
undoing
say,
all my work
don't
right now.
do podcasts. Yeah.
But the so like the kitchen we have now has this.
I mean, I'm sorry. I was talking specifically for back pain. I was
Yeah.
talking about, of course, moving is nice for other things too.
But this count. So kitchen countertop that comes out,
Mm-hmm.
and then where my kids would sit or whatever else. So like in the morning, I'll get up, I'll make myself breakfast, I'll make them breakfast, something else. But I won't sit down. I'll be doing it all in this kitchen place and have a counter, and I'll end up eating off the counter, just standing. So I'm doing that, and I've been doing that pretty much every meal except dinner. Like I'll sit down at dinner. But the difference is huge. I'm not sitting. All that time I'd otherwise be sitting, I'm not sitting. And it makes a difference. And when we now go to dinner with someone or something, I'm like,
Yeah, I can't. I
Get
start
up.
getting
come, let's do something. And you're
Yeah.
sitting for 3 hours.
I feel so childish nowadays because I feel just immature, you know? Because people sit down to have, and I've always like, there's this culture which I adhere to of like people, you know, staying until late, and you know, I don't drink alcohol or anything, but there, you know, it comes with it, and people talk, and I kind of started this podcast because I like to just talk to people uninterrupted, right? So I love it, but at the same time, I started like, let's, you know,
Move a
let's
bit.
move people. Let's, you know, just change chairs or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll let you leave in a bit.
No. All right.
All right, we went through techniques and exercises, whatever. I think you do try a few different sports. Rank the sports you practice from your most favorite to least favorite.
Well, surfing's definitely top favorite.
Right.
And then I don't know that I'd have.
Oh, actually, sorry, I
Yeah.
had a question that preceded this.
Uh,
How important is squat depth / mobility for shortboarding?
shortboarding, surfing.
Yes.
Man, mobility is everything. As
All
far as I
right.
say, yeah, you want. So and like I know that it's like how deep or how heavy squatting or
Because
whatever.
here's my thing, right? And I'll do a short video on this eventually. But here's my thing: even if there's this internal rotation of the back leg, which allows you to go deeper without actually having a deep squat, does it not help you to get stronger in that deep position?
Yeah, either way, it's gonna. You're not always gonna be able to internally rotate. Like, it's a much less stable position that.
Yep.
So, you know, while you might have someone on a perfect point break or clean reef doing that weaving stuff, like the chances of you doing that of thumping shore break, like you're not always gonna have that. And if you did, you might end up dislocating your knee. You know, you could have a bad injury anyway.
Yeah, people get.
So but either way, you're going to be stronger by, I think, when I talk about strength or stronger, I feel like that's in a whole range of movement. And mobility compared to flexibility, so I was saying to me, yeah, flexibility is just like kind of passive, like how far will this thing go? But mobility is, okay, active, how far can I move through
Yeah.
this range? And that's what you need is okay, flexibility you want as well, but
Yeah.
mobility is the key. And so, and then in terms of loading, okay, yeah, if you can be stronger, why not? But there can be a lot of surfers out there who can't lift huge loads. You don't have to have huge strength, and depending what your goals are as well. So,
But do you think if those good surfers got stronger, they would be better surfers?
potentially, but potentially not if they're big wave surfers, to an extent maybe. But then, if they're wanting to relax and not consume all their oxygen rapidly, maybe less muscles better. You got all these muscles, and you're tense. You're getting thumped and thumped and thumped. You know, if you're a big, bulky guy, maybe you're gonna use it all up. So, but I don't. I'm not. That's beyond my realm of expertise anyway. But I think it does come down to what's your goal, what's your aim, and what are your strengths and weaknesses, not just physical. So that's how you then where you'd be training. You know, you focus on what you're training. But yeah, depth for me, mobility in the right way, not just how deep can I squat. What does it look like? What?
That's. Sorry for interrupting you. You want to finish? That's also sort of something I'm trying to understand. Is sometimes people come to me and they go, "I want to be mobile," and I'm like, "Listen, I can work on your wrists flexibility, your elbows, your sort of back extension. I know I've done a bunch of stupid things too, so I can improve ranges of motion everywhere. Some places you definitely don't want to improve them, and I've had people, sort of two people, pulling my leg up to my head, and at some point, and it never hurts. It's just my leg is here. It never hurts. If it through the side, it's sort of pseudo externally rotated. Never hurt. It just goes there. But you do need about 100 kilos of strength. So this is what I'm trying to sort of understand now with this whole movement on social media and mobility and stuff. Is I think people are coming to me, and when they say mobility, they mean two things: sort of squat depth, which we're incorporating hips and mostly dorsiflexion, the ankle, and then shoulder over the overhead, and that's it, right? Because otherwise, I don't think we're interested in improving much else, right? What else could it be?
It probably is. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not in terms of what people are after. I don't.
All right.
No, probably not
It
following
seems
enough.
pretty simple. It seems like two things to work on there. Otherwise, of course, I know the way you train, you explore some other things. But I mean, for someone, that shows up at the gym, I think these are two very important things, and they're much more important than other kinds of mobility.
Yeah. Yeah. The way I see it, and kind of just for me, how I think and feel it and visualize it and plan what I want to do for myself is I want to kind of feel through the movements as much as understand what that looks like and what it's going to do and where it will benefit me. But I'll probably saying over this last 18 months or whatever, from where I was feeling to how I'm feeling now, that how I feel is more important than what my aim was in the first place, or sports-wise, what I'm training towards or anything. It's like I actually just feel so much better.
And what do you
and
on your day-to-day life, in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, and so it definitely releases. Okay, like warming up, like it's also probably an age thing for me, but I mean, without a doubt, I'm spending like probably up to half of my session just getting mobile.
We can keep going. Just want to make sure this is still going. I mean, I feel like especially with, me trying to get into circuit school when I was 14 and being just fresh 15, there was no warming. You don't need to
Yeah.
warm up. Really, it helps, and there's some stuff with injury prevention too. But you know, how much performance are you going to potentiate at that
Yeah.
age? You know, it's fine.
Yeah.
And now it's not anymore.
Yeah.
It changes quite
It's different.
drastically.
It's very different. And so yeah, so it's like that's and also that, you know, even now I'm like need to tell myself, okay, like, you know, going back to that thing, if you're in a workplace and you've got, okay, an hour window or whatever, it's like, okay, do you pump that hour with this the hard hitting stuff? I've got to get it in somehow, or get it in like this, or do you go, okay, well, you know, to do it properly, I might have 15 minutes of that part, and then I need to be cooling down and undoing it all again to make sure I'm not stiff afterwards. And before all of that, it's going to take me 40 minutes just to get to that point. So is that what the session looks like?
Yeah.
And then, oh, shit, that meeting overran. I only have half an hour now. Is it even worth doing anything? And of course, what I should be saying is, yes, absolutely, go in and do the full mobilization part. And without a doubt, I will feel better. And without a doubt, the next time I train, I'll be in a better position.
Yeah.
And blah, 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 blah.
Would that
But
be
the-
your
but
final
usually
part?
I'll miss
Would that
that.
be the final part? If you were to reduce this, if you divide sort of this session in 3 or 4, and you suddenly only have time for one part, is it which one would it be? Which
I
one
think
is-
I'd need to prioritize the mobility, because I can't, like,
and
anyway, it would be at least 20 minutes for me to feel like I can mobilize. And then if it's a half-hour session, it's like, as I say, I think knowing me now where I'm at, maybe I could get away with it one day, or depending on what has been around it. But if it's just like, this is a regular day, got all this other shit going on, you're kind of stiff because you either trained the day before, or you didn't train, or you've just been sat anyway. Probably the best thing for me is just going to be to mobilize and not try and fit any more in.
Yeah.
Or if I did, maybe it's just like one tiny thing, and then it's still 90% of that is mobilizing, activating, recruiting,
Yeah.
and then the end of it, I'm just trying to release more stuff, and I'm good.
Yeah. Not trying to chase loads.
Yeah. So, but I think, yeah, but if you're doing that every day, like, that's the thing, is like, also with, say I've been training maybe 3 times a week in the gym here. On the other days, I might surf with my kid, but every time I've gone with a kid, even if I'm just posting him into some waves, and that's all I'm doing, I'll still do like maybe 15 or 20 minute like mobilization on the beach before I get in.
Yeah.
And that has done so much without me even thinking about it. It's
'Cause you
made
feel
such a
so
difference.
much looser, right?
Yeah, and that's just like, that's the thing for the day, and it's done it. And
Yeah.
if I just hadn't done it, even if it was 10 minutes, if I hadn't done that, it'll make a big difference.
Yeah.
So I've obviously heard this so much before, but you hear all this shit and it doesn't go in until you're actually like, okay, fuck, yeah, dude, that's me, and yes, that's what they're talking about, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I need to find a way, maybe, like, I remember, like, if I commute, look, probably the best way of me doing stuff is to run to work. There might be like a 5-mile run or 6-mile run.
And then can you shower when you get there?
It's something I need to figure out. Yeah. But I'm gonna, you know, if I'm doing that, I need to just put in the time to be able to
That'd be
have
great.
at least 10 minutes before and 10 minutes after to sort myself out, or
Yeah.
all I'm going to achieve is getting there and then being buggered.
Well, let's, and I would like you to, let's talk about that later, but I would like you to ask you some more questions so you can teach me some stuff. I'm sad that you're leaving, and, you know.
I'm very sad.
Maybe you'll come back at least for vacaciones, huh?
Yeah.
And can we go back just to the ranking and then
Yeah. So look, what surfing's
we end?
definitely that's unquestionable. And then, Joe, I don't know because like I don't really have like I like the variety of different things and like I love open water swimming. I started trying K1 canoeing and I suck at I'm capsizing all the time. Like yesterday was the best day I'd had yet and I only capsized 3 times. First time was within the minute. um, and but you know I enjoy that and I'm enjoying the challenge of having to learn something new. But I like running, windsurfing. I used to windsurf a lot. If I had the kit or people were doing it again, I'd do it and love it. So there's a lot of different
They're
things.
my enemies, but sure.
Yeah.
Just because surfers. I mean,
Oh, the windsurfers.
yeah, I don't want wind.
Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah.
But sure,
Yeah.
if you can do both, if you can play in.
Rowing.
In
I've been
both.
rowing in the mornings
Yeah.
here a bit. So
What's more boring, running or rowing? Rowing.
It's rowing, but it does depend on how you're feeling. But there's more faff with rowing.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot more faff. Unless you just have your own stuff and jump in the boat and off you go. But it's something quite relaxed, like free about just putting your shoes on.
All
or
right,
not,
can we-
and running.
Do a catch-all right now. So surfing, number 1. And then what's next?
If it's training wise,
Yes.
running, probably. Running and swimming.
Swimming, running and swimming. Sure.
Swim, run.
Aha! Thank you. Swimming and running, and then
And then,
K1.
yeah, I mean, at the moment, I guess it's that. That's what I'm doing other than
Sure.
surfing, so it's canoeing. Yeah, and I guess if I was here and was staying here now and this summer and going through, that's what I'd be doing. I'd be trying to get in some running, but I'd be doing the K1 in order to eliminate the capsizes before a windsurf.
All right.
Because I feel that's a good, you know, it's really testing the balance and syncing that with feel and core strength and yeah, you're really having to think differently and work. But it's all completely new.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. This is
Done.
it. I'm
Done.
sorry that I
Beautiful.
made you sit for so long. It was. I still feel like. Thank you for taking this time with me
Thank you.
and for this chat and for being the guest on the second episode. So. I guess-
Thank you. I hope that some of that's useful. I don't know if that was
yeah, it is.
what you were expecting. Helpful.
Yeah, it was great.
Hoping. Don't know. Anyway.
It was great. You
Thanks,
were
buddy.
my second.